From studios at the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, this is Fourth and State. Sandy Pasch is a state rep for Milwaukee's North Shore, but maybe not for much longer after her old district was carved up. She talks about her plans on this edition of Fourth and State. I'm David Haynes, editorial page editor of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. Welcome to Fourth and State. We're here with Sandy Pasch, who is the State Assembly representative from the 22nd District, representing a number of North Shore communities, for now including Shorewood. Sandy Pasch, welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Thank you. And I'm saying for now including Shorewood because under the Republican redistricting plan that is currently being reviewed by federal judges, you would lose most of your district to various other representatives.
Yes, I would.
So what do you plan to do?
Well, this is going to court tomorrow, as we on February 21st, and so I'm going to wait and see what happens with the three-judge panel and see what kind of decision they come up with, and but keep my options open.
There's some speculation you might run against Elizabeth Coggs in what I think is now the 10th district. Have you thought about that?
I know that there are going to be other districts open in Milwaukee, so we're still just working things out and seeing what's open and what's available. We all believe that Milwaukee needs strong representation, and Milwaukee needs diversity, and Milwaukee needs a variety of voices, and strong voices in Madison.
And on the redistricting issue itself, what would you do if you could be in charge of that process? How would you change it?
Actually, I'm a co-author on a bill that was introduced that would change the process of redistricting. It would make it a model that's used, similar to a model that's used in Iowa, which takes the whole redistricting way and puts it into a nonpartisan panel.
Into a commission
different
approach.
Yes, a different group. And it makes the districts more 50-50. Now, I believe there's some districts that we can never make 50-50 unless we did incredible gerrymandering. But right now, the way it's being done, it's they're strongly Democrat, strongly Republican, and it's keeping people apart. It's not forcing legislators to really listen to all of their constituents. And the people of our state will be best served if their representatives and senators listen to all of them.
How does the current process affect lawmaking, in your opinion?
It has become incredibly divisive and partisan. There is very little give and take. There needs to be more give and take. This is unprecedented in the partisanship, I think, and the divisiveness that's been going on. One group doesn't feel the need to talk to another group, and again, that does not serve the people. If you're in a safe
district, you really don't have to compete for votes from the other side.
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think people will take votes that really don't reflect the best interests of their district because maybe of special interests or because of the way things are going to be gerrymandered in the future.
Do you have an example in mind?
When we look at some of the people, well, just looking at the upcoming map that was put forward, I think that made a lot of people who took very difficult votes safer the next go-round because you look at the Senate seats in Racine. It makes districts that used to be 50-50 much more safely Republican.
Well, the Senate seat
now.
you ran for against Senator Darling
becomes much more Republican. Yes, yes. And it was more, it wasn't a 50-50 district, but it becomes a strong Republican district. And then the rest of the people who are in that Senate district are going to have someone who really doesn't need to listen to them at all.
So you were just named a couple of weeks ago Assistant Democratic Leader in the Assembly. What's that mean? What do you do?
It means that I help guide the message and the mission of the Assembly Democrats and work with all the members to make sure that their special needs and issues are heard and addressed.
So are there any particular issues that if the Democrats would regain power, or if they don't, that you would be pushing for as this session closes, but looking forward really into next year?
Well, there are things that we've been pushing forward all along. Unfortunately, they haven't been taken up by our colleagues on the other side of the aisle.
What's at the top of that list?
Jobs in the economy. Jobs in the economy and jobs in the economy.
Okay. And how would you do that as opposed to how the Walker administration
and
the Republicans did?
Right. I think what the Walker administration and my Republican colleagues have done has been incredibly short-sighted. They're looking at, that to them the only way of growing jobs is by appealing to special interests instead of looking at what's in the best interest of the people across the state of Wisconsin. You don't gut education. You don't cut training for jobs. You don't gut manufacturing like they did with a lot of the programs that were in place to get going and putting people back to work. You have a much more balanced approach to doing it. And you know, Wisconsin is one of the only states, it is the only state that has lost jobs for 6 consecutive months while the rest of the economy and the rest of the country has been growing.
I think the Walker administration would argue that the tax incentives, at least some of them, are just that, and it might take a while for those tax incentives to begin to work. It's not sort of an overnight thing. Where would you be at on, say, tax incentives in general?
I think if you do a tax incentive, it has to be geared in the right way. We want small businesses to start developing. We know that the growth of the economy in our state is by developing and encouraging small businesses through venture capital, which isn't going anywhere.
Let's talk about the venture capital bill. That's one example. There was a version in the Assembly which included certified capital companies, CAPCOs, which by many accounts haven't worked real well. The Assembly sort of went for that, the Republican side at least. In the other house, there was a bill I think you signed on to involving a fund of funds that would have put $100 million through bonding into VC. Do you think a venture capital bill can still get done this session?
Well, this is really in the Republican hands, and we haven't been given any words of encouragement on that go-around. They're saying it's because of the bad state the budget's in, and of course this was a budget that was supposed to be balanced, and now we're seeing $143 million shortfall, which is leading to raiding the fund that was put forth for the mortgages, and the governor took $25 million to fill a hole in that. Raided that to bail out the budget. So we've seen a variety of things that should have gone forward that was supposed to be working to pull our state up, and that's just not happening.
Let's turn to the recalls for a minute. I'm assuming you believe that the recall of the governor is justified. Am I right in that assumption?
People in the state have put that one forward. That's so grassroots that they've decided. You know,
what do you think of the? What do you think should happen if the Democrats regain power with Act 10? Act 10 being the legislation that essentially took away bargaining rights for public employees.
I think what needs to happen when the Democrats gain control of the state is that we start working together, that we start repairing the divisiveness that we currently have, that we start honoring workers and middle-class families, that we have a balance of power between the different houses and the governors. As we talked about earlier today, also included in Act 10 is giving an unelected official unprecedented power and authority to make decisions for the people in the state of Wisconsin.
The health secretary.
The health, Secretary of Health. And, and other things that were done prior to Act 10, giving the governor the ability to essentially veto a bill by, you know, this could be in the weeds for a lot of people, but it gives the governor unprecedented power to kill a bill without any legislative veto overrides or anything. We have to get our state back on track. We have to do jobs in the economy. We have to look at education and start recognizing that our future is dependent upon quality education from K-12 to the technical colleges to the UW system.
But do you think Act 10 should be repealed?
I think Act 10 needs to be repealed, yes.
Okay.
I think people need to have the right to be at the table, to look at their working conditions and their benefits. We're all stronger when we're at the table, not when one party is dictating decisions for everyone else.
And Kathleen Falk, the Dane County executive who is running for governor, has said that she would veto any budget bill that didn't include a repeal of Act 10. Do you think that's an appropriate thing for an appropriate pledge to make?
In general, I'm against pledges of any kind because we don't know what the situation is going to be at the time. I mean, we've seen pledges that people have taken that they'll never raise taxes, even if, you know, all heck is breaking loose.
I think there was a president who said, read my lips.
Yes. But I also just look at some of the pledges and promises that have been made by our governor and by our legislators that they will never raid funds, yet they raided this fund for the mortgages, that you know, that they won't do a variety of things, that they're going to put together groups and committees to deal with things, that they're going to bring people to the table. We saw with the mining bill that, you know, he's going to put together, I think it was Senator Fitzgerald, that we're going to have a committee that's going to look at this. You know, promise you we're going to work on this together, and I don't like the outcome, so I'm going to renege on my promise.
And that committee was blown up last week.
It was blown up last week.
Yeah.
The governor put together the committee on the venture capital, and again, that one isn't going anywhere either. So I think when people put pledges or promises, that they need to be genuine on it and not just make it so circumstantial. But there's the caution with doing that too, because we really don't know how things are going to be playing out and what the situation is going to be at the time.
Okay. Well, one more question. I know you're a runner, so how much are you running these days?
About 5 miles every morning.
Wow, every morning. Good for you. Okay, well, you've got me beat.
Okay.
Sandy Pasch, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.